Hey Shay, good morning. Hi. He won't come, he's abusive. I didn't mean to upset Liv's live or center myself. I was trying to protect people. like, we had this issue with him months ago in our spaces. He's a very toxic person. Oh, somebody else in another live. So when I saw him on the panel acting like he was a good person, I almost died. I was like, no, not him. Live, no. Our community already knew, no, no. Oh, wait. Were you in the last live, Carmen? Oh, yeah, so Chris used to hang out with us, and he was very problematic and loud and rude. And one night we were having a conversation, and it led into domestic violence. And we knew he was problematic. And he got down a weird path saying that even if a woman was being abused, she owed the abuser time to heal and be a better person, and she should stick it out, and some of it was her fault, and it turned into a screaming match. Yeah, it was really weird. And he was interrupting us and telling us the problems with women, and he was just a very problematic person. And he was a problematic person to have around overall. So everybody in the queer community knows he's a problematic person. So when I saw him up on the panel, I was trying to tell everybody that he's problematic to have around women. And then we got into that, oh, you need proof, you can't just say that. So when they said something about not believing the black experience, I said, oh, I can relate because nobody believes the experiences of women. So people thought I was trying to center myself, and I'm like, no, I'm actually trying to protect black women from a person that's problematic and has problematic opinions about women. And you're not believing me. And he was being combative with me in the comments when I said, hey, Chris Crackdown is not a good person. And he got aggressive with me. Prove it. You have no receipts. You have no proof. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I do have proof. I have people. I was there. we know that you're problematic. And after that night, he knew he did a bad. He created all these different accounts. And when we confronted him on it, like, hey, this person's problematic, he attacks us. He calls us all liars. And, like, we don't want him around women. He yells at us. He's aggressive. He's rude. He attacks. He lies. And that's what abusive men do. They DARVO. He just totally DARVO'd me. And then he was trying to get like all the women to believe him. She's a liar. She's wrong. We have to have a neutral space. Yeah, and so there were people in the comments that were there that night trying to say like, oh yeah, Chris, since that night you said all those terrible awfuls, you made like 5 different accounts. And I was trying to tell people like, we don't panel him in our spaces because he's terrible with women. And look, he won't come to my space to talk about it because he's an abuser and he has to control the environment. I'll wait. Let me see if I can send him an invite. I don't know if he's on my friends anymore. I don't know if you're in the comments, Jessica, but this was way before we met you. No, he's not on my friends list anymore. I don't know if you were there that night, Petty. Chris Crackdown. Were you there? Were you there that night when all hell broke loose with Chris?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Are you talking about when he kept getting blocked and he kept making noise, or he kept coming in on different accounts and harassing?
Oh, that's a new one. No, I'm talking about the night when he said like, if women were getting DV'd, they owed it to their abuser to like stick it out and get them therapy, and DV was like partially their fault. Were you there that night?
I was there for that night, and I was also there for the night with Raven when he said something. I forgot what he said, but he got blocked, and then he came in on 5 other accounts, and he kept getting blocked on each account.
Was he coming in to like stalk Raven?
He was harassing Raven and me in the comments.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, that one.
Was
That's
that
when
when
he
he
found out he had a bunch of different accounts, including an alter that's a woman, which I forgot the name of.
was he coming in to like clarify himself?
No,
What was he saying?
I don't even remember. I would say Raven does, but she doesn't want to talk about it.
Oh yeah, he won't come.
Did you invite him?
He's not on my friends list. Is he on your friends list?
Hell no, I blocked him.
I'll go back over to live on my other account. Say we're waiting.
Oh my god. See, even if he does come in, I'm not going to be a big help because I don't really remember a lot.
I don't remember like all the details, but I remember what he said. I mean, I'm sure Raven could be getting up. She'll remember because she was so heated.
She didn't want to talk about it when I asked her about it.
Oh, she doesn't have to. We won't make her relive that drama.
No, she'd rather just move on.
Is he still raging in the comments over there?
I don't even know because I don't have another device to check. Can you check on your iPad?
Yeah, I'm checking on my iPad.
Surprised you're not in bed. Usually you don't stay up this late.
No, I did. I ended up falling asleep and waking up early.
Oh, wow. Oh, he's here.
Oh. Oh, they can come up. I invited him. So you don't remember the huge amount of drama we had back a few months ago? Chris?
Give me 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
What does that mean? Does that mean you do remember or you don't?
I think he said give me, but I didn't hear the give, meaning he'll be back in a second.
Oh, okay.
Echo requested.
Well, we don't need other people up here who weren't involved. Sage was involved. I was involved.
Abusive people lie and try to make rules and control the environment, she
Yeah.
said, hosting the live. Okay, let's do it.
So you don't remember a few months back why we got upset with you?
I as vividly as I possibly can remember that situation. So I should clarify that my expectation is that if I say anything you don't like or dispute you, that I'm going to be silenced, kicked, or booted. So I guess do what you want with that.
No, I mean, it's my understanding that when we were talking about, like, domestic violence, you said something along the lines that, like, women had a responsibility to the men that were causing them harm, and that's why we got upset with you.
I have a different recollection of things, and if you want to give me a time limit, minute, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, I'm happy to provide that.
No, I mean, it should be a very short explanation.
Okay, so 30 seconds then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, give me a second. So my recollection, first of all, logistically speaking, was that it was Andy's live, and Andy, Army Cyber Guy Andy, had basically fallen asleep, leaving the reins to the mice who came out to play. And the conversation had to do with domestic violence and domestic abuse. I clarified that as a DV and domestic abuse survivor, and it's continuing to today, that the paradigms. Oh, that's 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, so
Shall I continue?
you didn't want to answer the question.
Oh, I'd love to. I think it's not as simple as you're trying to derive it to be, but happy to answer. I
No,
would
we're
prefer to.
gonna
I
go
prefer to
all the way to
clarify.
the
Okay, go ahead.
we're gonna go all the way to the end when we got upset and there was yelling and screaming.
Sure.
And Raven was like, "That's really weird that you would say that. Like, what was your justification for thinking that somebody owes something that's doing them harm anything?"
Yeah, I don't think anybody owes anybody that's doing them harm anything. I believe the general gist of what I was saying is that if more resources were made available for mentally ill people, essentially, if more mental health resources were made equitably accessible, instances of DV and domestic abuse would subside, if not plummet, if not become eradicated altogether.
But that's not what you said. Sage?
That's 100% what I said. So what are we doing? Do you want to pull up the live and I'll pull up the live? Like, you're saying I said something. I basically I was commenting on how important mental health resources are for stemming domestic violence, and then I believe it was Raven, who obviously is not a hothead at all, who basically said, "Oh, your domestic violence and domestic assault and what you've experienced, it really doesn't matter because you're saying there should be more resources available, mental health resources to available to people who will ultimately, are likely to become abusers, such as to prevent domestic abuse and domestic violence from happening."
Sage? Am I somehow confused with what we heard?
No, you're not.
What a shocking response.
I mean, because Chris, the problem I'm having is that like there was a lot of people in the room, and a lot of us were really angry with what we heard. Because when we hear things like providing mental health resources for people, like we tend not to get angry with that.
Yeah, you know who wasn't in the room? The
Who?
host, who typically maintains some level of decorum in there. So when the cat's away, the mice will play. And I believe it started with me. I was talking about something, and then Raven, which obviously she would never overtalk anyone or cut anyone off, did for the first time ever. And I believe I said something to the effect of reclaiming my time. And that is what set off the powder keg of a bunch of people unsupervised by Andy to then lace into me with egregious ableism, with insults and ad hom, and then ultimately kicking me. And then after kicking me, just berating me senseless. So tell me more about how equitable and level-headed this interaction was.
I mean, but do you think that you were also yelling and unreasonable?
It is entirely possible that the volume of my voice was raised commensurate with the room. I don't recall saying anything unreasonable.
So do you think that referring to other people as mice is more of an ad hom attack?
Not at all. I think that you are engaging in manipulating language, just as you did in the room before, where I said, "Oh, that doesn't ring a bell," which is a common colloquialism for "I don't remember," which you twisted into, "Yeah, that's what abusers say." So no, when the cat's away, the mice will play is a common colloquialism indicating that when a given supervisor, or in this case, host of a live, is away, the mice or people within that live that are generally refereed or for whom the host acts as intermediary will tend to act outside of those parameters and boundaries. And so, no, there is nothing ad hominem about using a colloquialism like "when the cat's away, the mice will play." And I think it's deplorably manipulative to try to somehow squeeze some sort of nefarious intent out of a simple, harmless colloquialism.
I think you're being a little bit abusive right now, right?
I'm
Because I
sure you
think
do. Yeah. Yeah. Assertive language and self-advocacy is abusive. Copy that.
because like I'm disabled too,
Okay.
and like you're using terms like you think that the people in the room were upset with you because they were ableist and not by the things you were saying, and that they were like unleashed by vile anger because the host wasn't there and they weren't capable of comprehending what you were saying.
Yeah, I never said they weren't capable of comprehending what I was saying. Again, you seem to be twisting the words in a manipulative way so as to paint me as some kind of villain. I should be clear also that simply being disabled does not prevent someone from being ableist. I would refer you, for example, to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was called a bitch by a guy who subsequently said, "Oh, well, I have a mother, I have a wife, I have daughters," as some kind of justification for how he could not possibly be misogynistic. People who are disabled can also be ableist. And so when you guys are going to say that I'm weird, creepy, crazy, any of these other ridiculously ableist terms, yeah, I think that's inappropriate and ableist. I don't think that I said anything about your comprehension abilities, nor have I called your disabilities, ostensibly or otherwise, into question.
But you did, you called us mice, because when I was in the room that night, like, I didn't talk at all. I didn't yell, Sage didn't yell, Joe didn't yell. It
But
was
okay,
like you doing all the yelling.
okay. Again, you're extracting manipulatively so one word from a common, harmless colloquialism and trying to portray it as if I'm calling you a rodent, which is absurd. I've again clarified that when the cat's away, the mice will play is a common colloquialism, meaning when the person who would typically be supervising in a given environment, whether that's a referee, a host in a live, a mediator in a debate, when the person who would typically be mediating or supervising is away, those being mediated tend to act outside of the boundaries that would otherwise be governed by that mediator. So if the colloquialism is one with which you are uncomfortable, perhaps I could rephrase it to when the host is away, particularly one as demonstrably level-headed as Andy or Army Cyber Guy. It is not outside the scope of reason to understand that those in the live would act in a way that superseded how they would if Andy was present. And that feedback was provided pretty much explicitly subsequent to that live. So again, I would humbly, if not assertively, ask you not to try to conflate a simple, harmless colloquialism like "when the cat's away, the mice will play" into some sort of nefarious or salacious or otherwise romanticized notion that I'm in any way disparaging you or being pejorative.
But if you weren't being problematic and the host is a barrier of intellect, then why did they remove you from the live when they woke up? Like, why were you the one they removed?
Yeah, so the host is, again, I don't know why you're using the term barrier of intellect, because again, I would not say that a referee is a barrier of athleticism. So at no point has intellect been questioned except by you. And it should be clear that Andy was not the one to remove or block me from the live. And in fact, after he woke up, he apologized for falling asleep and for allowing the live to essentially run amok. And then he reinstated me or whatever, unblocked me, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
So
Okay. So let's go with your theory. Why did you then make a bunch of accounts and come back and make rude comments to Raven?
yeah, so it would occur to me that you would never refer to someone else's lived experience as their theory. So glossing over the diminutive nature of calling someone's lived experience their theory, I should clarify that I did not make a bunch of new accounts. Those are accounts that I have that I've set up because of the fickle nature of TikTok, and because I feel so strongly about resources being available to ultimately and actively stem domestic violence and domestic abuse as the social and societal scourge that it is. I came back and responded, I would say in kind, or as some people might say, I matched energy, which frankly even I think is a ridiculous paradigm. But in the moment, yeah, I thought, wow, what an unbelievably weak and lazy thing to do, to block someone because I don't like what they're saying, and then to trash them subsequently. Yeah, that is something that I find to be morally and ethically repugnant, and so I did respond. I didn't make a single new account for that, for that situation. I should also clarify that while I also have a memory of that situation in which I in no way hold any of you in high esteem, I have never popped into, or while being in a live with any of you, and I know I've been in a live with Sage before, I have never chosen to make that my platform to spew a bunch of repugnant, unsubstantiated claims, at all. So I cannot more profoundly disagree with your approach here, or again, the what you may think is subtly manipulative language. I'm picking up every word.
Chris, do you think if somebody sets a boundary with you, like if they block you, that it's like a good behavior to use other accounts, find them, and
Yeah,
like to say things to them just to finish your point because your point is so important?
yeah, so I would say that boundaries are self-imposed, not imposed on others. So when you say that you were setting a boundary by blocking me so that you could trash me, yeah, that is not a boundary. That is an
Well, she
abusive.
wasn't
If
she
I let
wasn't
you
trashing
finish,
you.
Did I let you finish? So that is, boundaries are self-imposed, and the notion that boundaries are something to be imposed upon others is little more than a demonstration of the bastardization and marginalization that the word boundary has taken on. So nobody, that would be like a parallel I might draw is somebody in an academic sphere telling me, oh, you know what, that reasonable accommodation you need, yeah, you can't have it, and I'm not going to discuss this anymore. Yeah, I'm not going to take that as a boundary. I'm going to go to the next person and be like, no, this is a wrong that I am interested in mitigating. So if it was a boundary being set, you would have left the room, because the idea would be, hey, I don't want to have anything to do with you. That's my boundary being set, and I'm going to leave in order to accomplish that. You do not control what I do. You only control what you do, and vice versa. So no, a boundary is self-imposed, not imposed upon others.
But so she set a boundary with you. She blocked you, and then we were in a live. You decided to come in under different accounts and like target your comments at her. She continued to block you on different accounts, and you kept coming back.
Yeah, so again, maybe there's a loss in translation here. Boundaries are self-imposed. So Raven, a demonstrated hothead, blocking me because she, evidently didn't have the spine to engage in contentious, though yet civil conversation or dispute. That's not her setting a boundary. That's her basically abusing what absolutely infinitesimally microcosmic power she was given by a well-meaning Andy who subsequently fell asleep. So once again, that is not a boundary. Boundaries are self-imposed, not imposed on others.
Why does Raven owe you any interaction? If she blocks you, why does she owe you any interaction?
Yeah, again, I understand what you're doing with the manipulative questioning, and that's fine. I should clarify, Raven absolutely and unequivocally does not owe me her time, her energy, her effort, or attention in any capacity. Uh, so as such, I do not think that she owes me anything. Though Andy's room is not her platform to again abuse what infinitesimally little power she has. And so again, I see that you're continuing to try to position and phrase this in such a way as to paint me as some villain who's like violating her personal space. That's absolute nonsense. For if she wanted to impose a bound, or again, impose a boundary, which would be on herself, there was absolutely nothing stopping her from leaving that space and removing herself from the environment that she ostensibly felt was
But Chris, she didn't remove herself from that space. and Angie didn't choose to remove herself from that space, but you kept coming back. And also, going back to the topic at hand that we were talking about that night, even if the host fell asleep, the whole room got upset with the things that you were saying because you weren't talking about like mental health things. You were saying that upset us. So usually in those spaces, if we were saying things like, mental health issues or helping people, those things typically wouldn't upset us. And when you call people things like, oh, the host falls asleep so the mice can come out to play, when you call people mice and you refer to them as animals, that's a little degrading, Chris. You are actually the one being manipulative here. It's not me.
There we go. Yeah. So again, she removed me from the room. You're saying Andy didn't. That's because Andy was asleep and he later apologized for it. And once again, the only little minuscule thing you can hang on to is a simple, harmless colloquialism.
It's not
That when the
harmless.
cats are, no. I let you finish. That when the cats are away, the mice will play. And once again, you are so desperately trying to utilize the word mice as some way to indicate that I disrespected you or compared you to animals. And my contention would be that anyone watching this or witnessing this would, of sound mind and body, would realize the unadulterated absurdity of taking a phrase like when the cat's away, the mice will play, and somehow manipulating it into, well, he's calling us mice. Mice are animals. He's being disrespectful. If anything, I'm referring to myself as one of the mice in the room, though simply not one of the ones that would adhere to such an utter lack of abstract and critical thinking as to say, hey, the solution here is to block this person, not engage in conversation, and then subsequently let's trash him to bejesus him back. So again, if the only thing that you have to hang on to is a simple, harmless colloquialism, I'm not sure where this is going to go.
Chris, you've also trashed Raven. You've called her unstable, unhinged. When you yourself that night were acting the same way, you've tried to degrade Raven. And I find actually conversating with you has been pretty manipulative. Petty, go ahead.
Okay, so I was there that night, Chris, as you remember, because we spoke after. Do you recall that?
Frankly, I would really like to respond to what was said, but yes,
No,
I
it's
do
not your
recall that.
turn. Go ahead, Petty.
I understand that. That's why I'm muted.
Okay, so where you're saying that you were simply talking about how we need more mental health, I'm going to be very upfront and point blank period tell you that if that's what you were trying to communicate, that's not how it came across. We all got very upset because the way that you came across was that victims are responsible for how their abusers feel. That it is our responsibility to make sure that we support and provide support systems to our abusers. So if that's what you were trying to communicate, that is not at all how it came across. And that is why everyone was upset.
Okay, so going back to verified in order here, I think that there is something to be said between degrading someone and engaging in common criticism. And I think that chasm has been so, again, marginalized and bastardized that to say that
It doesn't matter what you
well,
think.
I'm
That's what
sorry.
you
So I
did.
guess we're not. I guess I let you finish. So is that not
No,
what we're
you're
doing
not
here?
going to finish the sentence.
Right.
Go
That's not
back
what
to
we're doing here.
Petty's
Right.
point.
Okay. So if I'm not
We're
going to
not
interrupt you,
justifying
I
how
think there's
you
a reasonable
can.
expectation not to be interrupted in kind. So I think that Raven, who has by her own concession talked about how unmitigated of a hothead
Chris,
she
go
can
back
be.
to Petty's point.
Yeah,
I'm not letting you call Raven a
I'm gonna
hothead.
go in
Go back
order.
to
I'm gonna
Petty's
go in
point.
order and address the ridiculous claims that you made. That's fine. So absolutely, there's no degradation happening here. I think that night I might have said something to the effect of, "Wow, it sounds like she might struggle with emotional dysregulation." So again, an assertive comment. So again, no degradation.
You
As
don't
far
get
as
to
Petty is
diagnose
concerned,
women on my panel. Go back to Petty.
I have no idea what you just said. Doesn't matter. So as far as Petty is concerned, at best, what you're describing is a gross and I would say biased misinterpretation of what was being communicated, because at no point ever would I say, or did I say, that a victim or survivor, whichever politically correct term jellies your donut, should be responsible for caretaking or for engaging in emotion work to support their abuser. That is utterly ridiculous. And again, speaking from my own lived experience, it's wildly offensive and insulting. Now, I will say that its offense and insult is something that I am feeling as an interpretation of what you're saying. I would never go so far as to place the blame on you and say you insulted me or offended me, because I cannot control what you do, and you cannot control what I do. So again, at best, it was an egregious misinterpretation of what I was saying. But again, I would say on the basis of unmitigated bias. And I believe that it all started when I merely said reclaiming my time because I was being interrupted despite not having interrupted anybody else.
Petty, I think he thinks that we all misheard him and it's all our fault. It's
I
everybody
guess
else's
somehow
fault.
misheard and misinterpreted are the same thing now. Tight. That's my bad. I interrupted. Please continue.
Okay, but how? Okay, if multiple people interpreted the same thing, then wouldn't it bear to reason that maybe the way that you were communicating the thing, if that wasn't what you intended to communicate, was miscommunicated instead of it being a misinterpretation?
I feel I could use similar logic in the capacity that in the 100 times that I've had a similar conversation with different unrelated people, this has been the one time that it has been so grossly misinterpreted. I would further go on to say that I would hope that you would understand that particularly in the rancid shitholes that are TikTok lives so often, this whole notion that everyone is thinking independently and giving everyone a fair shake is patently absurd. So again, I would not trust some of these particular individuals to engage in the critical and abstract thinking and analysis necessary to independently analyze a claim or experience or situation when the pack mentality so clearly and quickly takes over. Like, do you really believe that Raven or Sage or anyone else in that panel, except for Andy, who again I feel is especially level-headed, would do anything but immediately acquiesce to a claim being made? There wouldn't even be a pause to think about it. It would be this instantaneous, yep, that's what happened, no question, because there is no, I mean, I hate to go so far as...
I have to stop this.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. There we go.
I just don't think women are safe with you, Chris.
I know you think that with absolutely zero evidence of any kind. So
it's your arrogance. Petty, what do you think?
I would ask you not to conflate arrogance with self-advocacy and assertive language, but that's, typical ableist behavior.
I feel like you need to take more care when somebody is telling you that they're not comfortable, or when somebody is trying to explain to you what they heard versus what you were trying to communicate. Because like I said, I was there that night.
We heard him. We heard what he
you
said.
Interpreted, right?
No, we heard what he said, and now he's trying to blame it. And he's calling us ableists when he's not safe for women. And I think his behavior proved it. It's everybody else's fault, and when he's wrong, we're ableists. So you heard it here.
I genuinely had a question, though. I want to know how saying someone is creepy is ableist, because creepy men are creepy men.
He is a creepy man.
Well, that's not where I was going with that. I was just saying, like, creepy men are, like, men creep. There are men who creep us out, and we call them creepy. How is that ableist?
I mean, just the tone of his voice was aggressive, and when I confronted him in the live, he attacked me. He's not safe for women, and I don't want to see him on panels around women, especially not in a live where there's 300 women, and I'm going to send this to Liv. Liv will see right through him. He said what he said on the panel, and Raven wasn't yelling for no good reason, and he was yelling too. I was there the whole night. I didn't yell once. We didn't misunderstood what he said. We heard him loud and clear. Jesus. Whatever.
I mean, I
He's,
wasn't like I was there in the comments the whole night. I wasn't like arguing, but that is definitely what I heard. Like that's the message that I got, and I don't understand how it would be possible for us all to get the same message, and instead of being like that wasn't what I intended, that's not what I meant to say, it's
yeah.
immediately everyone else misinterpreted it.
And when you set a boundary with someone, he just sat up here and said, yeah, like boundaries don't apply. When women set a boundary with a man, you don't violate it. Like, who is she to set a boundary? Like, what are you talking about? That's weird AF.
Yeah, I don't know. Because if I block somebody, that's literally me saying I don't want to fucking talk to you. That would, in my view, be me setting a boundary. I don't want to fucking talk to you.
Anyway, I'm going to end the live and I'm going to send it to some people because just his arrogance kills me. Whatever. So that's
Okay.
it. Bye bye.